You're listening to Generation AI
from LivePerson.
Welcome, everybody, to Generation AI. I'm Ruth Sive, and I'm very excited today to be speaking with Henry Schuck. Henry is the CEO of ZoomInfo, which is an all-in-one go-to-market platform that I've personally been using and following for more than a decade. So get ready to listen to a deep conversation about data richness, humans in the loop, and the future of sales with the frenzy of generative AI in the mix. But before I officially welcome our guest to the show, I do want to play for him a one-of-a-kind, and I'm sure a little bit cringy, piece of AI-generated content that our team created just for you, Henry. So here you go.
Right.
Enjoy.
Have you heard the story of a man named Schuck? He's the CEO of ZoomInfo. He's had some luck, building up a company from the ground, turning contacts into dollars, making business go round. He started with a vision and a small team, building a platform that would fulfill the dream of salespeople everywhere who need to find the right contacts to close the deal and leave the rest behind. Now he's leading a company that's growing fast, and he's got big plans for the future that'll last. He's a leader who's got his eyes on the prize, and he's taking ZoomInfo to new heights. Henry Schuck, Henry Schuck, the CEO with a Midas touch. ZoomInfo's growing day by day, thanks to Schuck leading the way.
Nice.
Okay. What do you think? A little cringy,
well,
right?
I've never been introduced by AI, much less an AI song. So definitely, probably maybe the first of many. For me, what I imagine is the first of many.
Well,
yeah, it was pretty good.
It's kind of creepy, but also interesting what it can generate. So
definitely.
Yeah, I hope it didn't make you cringe too badly. Welcome to.
I've been enjoying making stories with I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I'll tell her, like, what do you want to write a story about? Just tell me all the pieces, and we plug it in, and then we get a great story on the way out.
I love that. So welcome to our show. Thank you so much for joining us. I gave you a bit of a headline intro, but maybe share with our listeners just a little bit more about ZoomInfo and your background specifically.
Sure, and I appreciate you having me on. I also appreciate, Ruth, you being a customer for the last decade and following us. I really appreciate that. So my name's Henry Schuck. I'm the founder and CEO of ZoomInfo. I founded the company in my law school dorm in 2007. I was 23 years old. I put $25,000 on my credit card, $25,000 on my co-founder's credit card, and we started up a company to provide deep insights and contact information on decision makers to sales and marketing professionals. And the big learning at that time, and it's still true today, was I thought when I was starting a company and I was young and naive that, of course, somewhere inside of a company existed organically a pristine database of your customers, your potential customers, everything you needed to know about them, and that you could tap into that database anytime you're out there selling. And it turns out that is not the way sales and marketing teams go to market today. And so what our mission at ZoomInfo is to modernize go-to-market for all. And we believe that you modernize that by unlocking insights, by giving tools and software to allow you to engage your customers and ultimately win faster. So today we are just over a $1.2 billion revenue company. We're publicly traded on the NASDAQ. We have about 3,500 employees and are continuing to grow. Our customers come from everything from Fortune 10 companies to a pallet manufacturer in Mississippi and everything in between. But they're all selling to other businesses, and they need contact information, insights, and key data on those potential customers so that they can do that in an efficient 21st century way.
I love that background. I can tell you I've watched the company grow. I've been a customer as CMO at 3 different companies. And I don't think I could do my job without ZoomInfo. So, the way you've described it very much resonates with me.
Awesome. Great.
Tell us a little bit about yourself beyond that you're a startup founder, but specifically what I want to know, Henry, is when did AI, this is a podcast about AI, when did it first capture your attention? What's your first memory of AI?
So I have 2. The first one was, the company I founded was called Discover.org. And then in 2019, we made an acquisition of a company called ZoomInfo, and we changed our name to ZoomInfo. When that happened, there was a team at the company of data scientists and machine learning engineers. And they were leveraging AI to basically help us build better data. And I remember coming in and saying, and at the time it felt like very kind of like academic and futuristic. Mm-hmm. And my experience with that initial team was that it was very academic, that people were trying to build AI models and machine learning models that would drive something, but tended to not focus on the customer outcome, and then not be very tied to like timelines. It was like felt more researchy. Hey, we're doing sort of like AI and machine learning research without any connectivity back to the company and an ability to deliver AI for outcome for the business. And I remember seeing that and saying like, look, I understand the power of this, but it needs to be connected to the business in a much more real way. And then we need to tie the work to outcomes. And what are we trying to achieve with the models? And what's the timeline for that? Because if we just let people go do research on this stuff, we may never get something from an output perspective. And so we rearranged the team. And so my second, which melds into the first connection with AI, was kind of 6 months later, we had re-architected the team to be focused on how you use AI to drive a clear outcome in the business. And at the time, we're collecting data from thousands and thousands of different sources. And we needed an AI-driven model that could read anything and say, okay, that's a person, that's a company, that's a title, that's a phone number. And it didn't matter how the data was sorted. It didn't matter if it came from a web page or an email signature or a CRM. We needed to be able to look at any data and be able to do entity matching. Mm-hmm. And so that AI team 6 months later delivered a model that significantly increased our ability to do that type of entity matching, which we were doing through a rules-based system, mm-hmm. And really increased the amount of data we could collect from our existing sources. And so all of a sudden you had these sources of data that you were gathering, and then you were now getting significantly more out of those sources because we were able to plug AI models into what was once a rules-based engine and really drive outcome for the business as a result.
When was that? When did that milestone event happen?
Like the middle to end of 2019.
Got it. So interesting because, I live kind of in a parallel world. For the last 5 years or so, I've been working for companies that are focused on, customer support. Yep. And we think about, but then I work in marketing, so have an understanding of your world. But this idea that data underpins these models and the importance of data in fueling these models. So, yep. I guess I'm wondering, I have a point of view, as do others that I work with, that LLMs, these models, will fast become commoditized, and that the real AI opportunity is actually more so a function of data richness and data quality. So I'm wondering if you share that opinion and maybe some perspective on that from your point of view.
Yeah, I absolutely share that perspective. And I'll give you just a couple of examples I talk about often with our team here, which are, for years, we've been out there talking to heads of sales and heads of marketing and telling them, listen, the data inside of your marketing automation systems, the data inside of your CRM, it's inaccurate, it's wrong. You have no infrastructural element that's going to clean the data in those systems. But you and I can just intellectually, honestly agree that no company looks the same on December 31st as it does on January 1st. And that people are changing jobs, they're getting promoted, that at least a third of that of your customers, the people who buy your products and services will look different in a year than they do today.
Yep.
But to do nothing about that from a systems driven way is, in our point of view, just negligence. But that was really hard to land with a head of, say, a chief revenue officer or a chief marketing officer, because oftentimes the way they thought about that was like, look, what's the big deal? I get some more bounces. My salespeople complain more. Maybe my segmentation isn't as good, or, my territory mapping isn't as ideal. Now, the sophisticated thinkers went like, you increase that by 10%, you get a lot of downstream benefit from it. So what's been really interesting is that as generative AI has, taken corporate America really by storm, what you found is in the C-level ranks, everybody is saying, hey, tell me how we're using generative AI at the company. Tell me where it's being deployed. Tell me where we're leveraging it. And the top kind of 5 use cases, you'll always find customer outreach, prospecting, customer engagement in those use cases. And there's this great video that Salesforce has that shows what Einstein GPT can do, and it says identify for me my next best prospects, the next best customers. And it looks in the CRM and it goes, here they are. And then it says, okay, identify for me the next best people at those companies to engage with. And it goes back into CRM and it puts it out. And I've been doing this now, depending on where you start the count, 20 or 17 years. And I have yet to meet a company who shows up and says, yes, absolutely, you can trust my CRM data to build a model that I don't have to see, that can just deliver me the best prospects to engage with. Or absolutely, the data in my CRM about the people we should be engaging with is accurate and complete and enriched, so you're picking the right industries and the right sizes and the right locations and the right personas. That just doesn't exist anywhere. And so what we really believe is that the data underlying that type of customer outreach needs to be incredibly accurate, totally enriched, really deep, and that we are in this unique position as a company and with an offering to really fuel that. And I think we're pretty excited about the tailwind that creates for our business.
I love that. Do you think CRMs go away? Does data get warehoused, enriched differently? Or I guess maybe the better question is, do CRMs get reimagined as something else, something maybe more dynamic, more accurate? Because I agree with you.
Look,
Nobody has ever pointed at Salesforce and said, that is the best source of it. Like, my data is spot on.
Yeah. And I think what happened there was CRM, the promise of CRM was to be that. Yeah. But what happened was they just said, okay, here's a database, put anything in.
Right.
And you can sales rep can put data in, marketing can buy a list, marketing can go to a webinar, marketing can go to an event, salesperson can just randomly decide they're going to put this person or that person. Yep. And then what's so, interesting is that CRM went, okay, great, we've got this data, let's build applications for it. And in between those two foundational steps should be some type of infrastructure that fully enriches that data, that cleanses it, that keeps it up to date. And they just skipped that. And so look, today, first of all, I think CRM is so central to how every business operates that it's always going to play a meaningful role in how any enterprise goes to market, organizes their customers, thinks about opportunities. Now, I think what you see today is CRM is not the main pane of glass for account executives, account managers, SDRs, the marketing organization. It is an incredibly important workflow mechanism inside of the company. We can't run without Salesforce sort of keeping everything going. But our AEs and AMs, they're not the biggest users of CRM. Yeah. And so I think that what has to happen for CRM to stay relevant for the masses is that it has to be capable of driving insights for salespeople, for marketing people. It has to be able to leverage the really high quality data to deliver those insights. And if it can do that, I think it finds meaningful relevance in the way companies go to market. As it is today, I think it's tough in a world where so many software companies are going to be producing really valuable insights for CRM to stay really relevant if it's not doing that in a best-in-class way.
I think you're right. Let's you talked about the importance of data integrity, and I remember back in the day, I don't know if this is still the case, but back in the day, one of the really differentiated claims of ZoomInfo is that you had humans auditing your data to ensure its accuracy. And that was frankly a message that resonated with me, because you don't want your data to be static for exactly the reason that you highlighted now. But I'm wondering, in this new world, does that function go away? Do we no longer need humans in the loop to sustain the integrity of our data? Does that change? And I guess more generally, your thoughts about whether or not AI is going to make jobs go away. Does the sales rep become obsolete? So maybe a two-parter there.
Yeah, look, I think first, I think humans are going to play an important part into teaching any of the models that we leverage, any of the AI models that we leverage. And I think if you have humans who can define a data set, tell you what's right or wrong, to really feed those models, I think you have a meaningful advantage against, you can't really start out with an untrained data set. You need to train that data set, and then the models get smarter and smarter over time. So I think human in the loop is going to continue to be a differentiating factor. Today, we still do have over 300 researchers who, went from a job. I mean, this is the continuum, but they went from a job of cleansing and gathering data to a job of tagging, identifying, finding anomalies in data, dealing with things that the AI models couldn't deal with. And so their job is no longer collecting, acquiring, cleansing the data. It's more as an input into the model, or handling things the model couldn't figure out. And so I do really believe that jobs are going to change as a result of generative AI really taking hold in the marketplace, or AI in general taking much more of a hold. And I think when I think about the sales rep, look, I think it's really hard to imagine a universe where somebody is going to spend six figures on regularly spend plus six figures on software without interacting with a counterpart who can help them understand anomalies or decision-making criteria, who they can have trust with, who they feel is going to show up and help them when they're implementing and deploying software, who's their advocate inside of a company, and who helps them grow and innovate. So I think that's hard to imagine just AI doing that. Now, I do believe that in the future, every account executive, every account manager will have a virtual SDR that's going to be fundamentally driven by AI. And that sort of co-pilot for the AM or the AE is going to show up every day, and it's going to know what you did over the last week, who you should be following up with, what new opportunities you should be chasing based on all of the data in your systems, all of the data in the ZoomInfo systems. It's going to tell you who you should follow up with. It's going to tell you which accounts you're underpenetrated in and you need to multi-thread through. It'll be your co-pilot for the day, and it'll do prospecting for you as well. But it'll basically be your right hand, go around with you and manage a bunch of your daily tasks that'll allow you to be sort of focused on building relationships, building customer trust as a salesperson.
Is that virtual concierge on the ZoomInfo roadmap?
Yes, absolutely. We're actually, this year we'll release the first steps towards that. But we actually, look, we fundamentally believe that the way you should be going to market is by leveraging signals and then taking action against those signals. And signals come in a variety of shapes and sizes. They could be somebody visits your website, your champion moves to another company, somebody's spiking on intent, a company does an acquisition, a company opens a new location, adds a new technology to their stack. And then for us, it is or someone comes to a webinar, interacts with your content. How do you bring that all together And the big job here is how do you prioritize based on all of those signals and then deliver to the sales rep basically, shovel ready data that tells you like, this is the first company you should reach out to today because of XYZ. This is the second, this is the third. And it shows you sort of like, these are the things that happen. These are the signals that are happening within those accounts that are the reason for your outreach. And I think that brain that makes sense of all of those signals, that becomes kind of the most valuable piece of, software inside of any company.
Love that. Well, I'm down to beta test when you're ready to
okay, great.
For
I'm going to hold you to that.
So, talk to me a little bit about what keeps you up at night relative to AI. We've talked about all of these opportunities. I'm sure we could spend another hour talking about the opportunities. I'm bullish on the opportunities. I think most people that work in tech are. What do you worry about? I saw you post recently, for instance, about how ZoomInfo can help detect data breach. That's an interesting use case. Certainly something to feel good about, but there's a flip side to that use case. So what is it that keeps you up at night, given the way that you interact with AI?
Look, it's so new, right? That it's not so new, but this like focus on it is so new that I think that the thing that I spend a lot of time focused on is what's the noise to signal ratio? Like, where are the areas that we should be focused on right now that are most important? And then where's all the like sort of ancillary noise that's like not really gonna create real value for sellers and marketers? And how do we make sure that we filter all that out and we focus on all of the signal and the direction? Because everybody is talking about generative AI and how it's going to change business and how it's going to change a salesperson's day to day, and how, and we have to have a strong point of view on that, stay focused on what our point of view is, and try to filter out as much of the noise as possible and try to make the best, most informed decisions about where we think the market is going to go and how to leverage generative AI to drive the most value for account executives and account managers without, getting distracted by every squirrel that, runs around the corner. So I think that's the piece that I think the most about, because everybody's showing up in my inbox and saying like, hey, guess what? Generative AI is going to change everything about sales. And I have the secret elixir for what that is going to be, and making sure that we're focused on the things that our point of view is strong on, that we really believe moves the needle the most for account executives and account managers. I think that's the piece I think most about.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a lot of hype out there right now and a lot of noise.
Yes.
Do you think every software company needs to be an AI company today? And do you think of ZoomInfo as an AI company?
Yes. I mean, I've always thought about ZoomInfo as an AI company, because the way that we make publishing decisions about what goes into our platform, what comes out of our platform, the fundamental thing we use is an AI model to make those decisions, because we're getting signal from so many different places. So, today we might get a signal that says, my CFO, Cameron Heiser, is the CFO at Ez Software. And that's like a remnant, and maybe it shows up on a newly published web page somewhere. The AI has to be smart enough to say, okay, we see that, but we have all this evidence that says he's not the CFO of that company, and it's not a trusted source because we never publish data from that source, or whatever it is. And so there's always been an AI brain inside of our publishing decisions into our platform. And so I do think of ZoomInfo as an AI company. And then do I think that every company needs to be an AI company? Every software company.
Yeah.
Yes. I think AI needs to be embedded somewhere inside of every software company. Yes. It's hard to imagine a software company that shouldn't be using generative AI or AI. And here's the thing that I think about a lot. Fundamentally, what generative AI is so great at doing are two things. One, taking a whole bunch of data and then making sense of it and summarizing it really clearly. We're using that already in our conversation intelligence platform, Chorus, that records meetings, transcribes those meetings, and then takes the transcription and writes a meeting summary with follow-ups and key steps and what was the meeting about. It's really good, like much better than if I sat down for 10 minutes post-call and tried to write something. Yeah. And then the second big thing I think it can do is really simplify user experiences and user interfaces. And so something that today inside of ZoomInfo could take 35 clicks, we have betas that with generative AI that take that down to 5 clicks. And so the ease of use for software platforms leveraging generative AI is tremendous. And so it's hard to imagine anybody not leveraging that to make the user experience more simple, make the user interface more suited for the use case that you're driving. And there's not a single software company out there who isn't in search of making their key use cases of their software more simple, more contextual, more obvious. And I think generative AI is a major unlock there.
Agree. Well, it will be interesting to see how the landscape changes. We could go on for another half hour, an hour. I want to finish with what's become our signature question here at Generation AI. If you could automate one thing in your life, personal or professional, what would it be? And what is one thing in your life, Henry, that you would never, ever automate, even if you could?
So I would never, ever automate my time with my family. My wife and I have a 7-year-old daughter. I would never automate that time. If I could my commute, like, could I automate my commute? So that would be, and any commute. I travel a lot, meeting customers all around the world. If you could automate that, and that would be amazing. If I could
Especially
even if it wasn't like,
if the automation was like shut your eyes and you're suddenly there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yes. I agree.
I don't need a teleporting machine. I feel like that's a step too far. But if I could like sit in a car and then find my way to my next destination without any of the logistics in between, I'm just being moved from thing to thing, that would be pretty amazing.
That would be wonderful. Yeah.
Well,
I think those are both great answers. Thank you so much for being with me today. Tell our listeners where they can find you if they have any questions and where they can learn more about ZoomInfo.
Definitely. You can find me. My email address is just henry.schuck@zoominfo.com. All my contact information is inside of ZoomInfo. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and you can find ZoomInfo at zoominfo.com.
Thank you so much. And to all of our listeners, please tune in to the next episode and be sure to subscribe to Generation AI wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. Henry, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruth.
You've been listening to Generation AI,
Automating Better Business,
a show from LivePerson.
Never miss an episode by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share the episodes you love. Until next time.